Alright guys, so I made a post today about fishing on the Black Pearl over the weekend. That's another sponsored trip. And I set a lot of people up with a double dropper loop cut. And I had a lot of people asking how do you tie a double dropper loop or a cut double dropper loop? And so I'm going to show you what I was setting up for people and what was working very well. Okay, so this is what I fished. We fished shallow water. It was a 3/4 day. We fished 100 to 130 foot pretty much the whole day. So I did the standard 3-way swivel, double rig. This is still the exact rod I fished the whole day and still the setup that I finished the day with. So that 5/8 ice right there was the ticket. It's you can see it is chewed. And then I finished with the 1.5 squid. So 1.5 squid, 5/8 ice, double rig was getting me a lot of fish. I caught 3 legal lingcods, 3 casts in a row with this. All 3 of them came on the 5/8 ice. All right, so that's people that had spinning reels or little bait casting reels that they can cast. I set them up this way. All right, now to explain why this works a little bit better than the double dropper loop. Okay, so guys that were fishing the double dropper loop are guys that just couldn't cast, straight down fishing, okay? Still, 2 hookup baits on a double dropper loop is still way more effective than anything else you're gonna put on a double dropper loop. I promise you. I see it happen over and over again. It's gonna outfish every shrimp fly. It's gonna outfish squid. It's gonna outfish pretty much anything you put down there on a double dropper loop. But you gotta rig it up a little bit different. So I'm gonna show you that. So first of all, you're gonna want to tie a FG knot to your braid on your conventional reel. So tie your FG knot, learn your FG knot. That's the best knot to use. Tie your FG knot, and then you're gonna give yourself 15, 20 feet of line because you're gonna be doing the dropper loop and you're gonna be using a lot more of your leader up. So tie a really long leader, where I typically do an 8-foot leader if you're going to be casting. If you're doing a double dropper loop, give yourself a 20-foot leader. It's going to be going onto a casting or conventional reel, so the knot's not going to really do much, in performance-wise. So anyways, so in that 130 foot of water stuff, I was tying up the bottom weight on most guys. I was doing 2 to 4 ounces was the perfect size bottom weight, okay? I hardly ever fished the double dropper loop, so this is the biggest weight I had around, the 1.5. All right, regular. You can actually just tie a clip or a swivel on here so you can change weights. But for this, I'm just gonna tie it on double improved clinch knot. Right. So there's your weight. That's gonna be on the bottom there. Right. So you want to come up about 2 feet above that, above your weight. That's gonna be on the bottom. Take the line, make a loop about 5-6 inches long, right? And then what you're gonna do is loop it. There, see the loop? Then you're gonna put the end of that loop through that 3 times, just an overhand knot. 2, 3. All right. So there's the loop there. Then you got the overhand knot. I like to wet that all up and just pull it tight, just like that. All right, now you got a loop, right? Nice, about 5 or 6 inch long loop. This is where the cut dropper loop, right? Really just what it's called, cut dropper loop. So instead of a loop, you have a piece of line, all right? So there's the bottom one. Then I go about another 2 feet. It'll be about there. Do it again. Make a loop. 4 to 6 inches. Doesn't really matter. Make a circle. Now you're going to put that loop through it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. All right. Snug it up a little bit. Wet it. Pull it tight. Now you got another loop. Right, there's the knot, there's the loop. Cut it, right, so there's the other side. There's that, right? And then what I do is I typically put the lighter one on top. Your top loop is going to have the 5/8 on it. Because the lighter the bait, the more it's going to swim while you're drifting along. Just a double improved clinch knot. Alright. Always cut your tag ends on your hookup baits, the tag end of your knot. And go to your bottom one, right there. And you kind of make a little bit long, you know, so it gives it some swimming action, but as the baits get chewed and everything else, it gives you a little bit of line where you can retie, you know, 3 to 5 times. You have enough line on there to retie a new bait on a few times. All right. There you have it. So this would be going to your fishing rod, right? That's going to your pole. And then your setup is basically going to be like this. All right, here's the weight on the bottom. This is going to be out swimming here. That guy's going to be out swimming there as you drift along. So I hope you can see that. So that's basically the setup. Weight on the bottom, you want your weight bouncing on the bottom, the baits will be swimming out here as you drift. Very effective, works very well, a lot of quality rockfish. Now, yesterday's trip was a prime example, you know, doing the inshore stuff that gets fished, you know, the 3/4 day stuff that gets fished really heavily. So there's a lot of small rockfish and all the local, you know, close by rocks. And so the shrimp flies and all that stuff will catch the little gopher rockfish and just all, you know, all the little rockfish that's there. I mean, everything will catch that stuff. But if you're using this setup, you're catching that stuff plus the bigger reds and lingcods and picachios and chinas and all the bigger, cooler rockfish. All of them came on this rig. Everyone else that was fishing the shrimp flies and squid were catching the standard little rockfish stuff, the gophers and the brown rockfish. So I've seen it time and time again that the quality rockfish every single time is either on the Hookup Baits casted rig or a Hookup Baits double dropper loop rig. Every time. And no squid needed. Don't put squid on Hookup Baits. It does not help. The baits get bit just fine without squid, so no need to stinky up your hands. You're not helping the bite ratio by putting squid on a hookup bait. Squid is only needed to put on baits that don't work. Hookup baits work very, very well. No squid needed, okay? Don't put squid on. I know everyone's kind of programmed to put a piece of squid on everything. Don't put a squid on hookup baits, okay? And this double dropper loop, get a, you know, the 5/8 on the top, and then 1 or 1.5, or you can do double 5/8. The weights don't really matter. And then a 2 to 6 ounce weight for inshore stuff, depending on current and wind. And then if you go out to the deeper stuff, then that's when you're going to be going to the 8s, the 12s, the 16s, 20s, whatever you need to get to the bottom. But still, that same length, double cut dropper loop. Now, why you cut the dropper loop? That's a big thing, right? I forgot to mention. So when you do a hook or a shrimp fly, you just put the loop through the eye of the hook and then loop it over the hook. And the loop sits on the shank of the hook. And so that doesn't break, right? And you got 2 leads going to your hook. Well, on a hookup bait, just because of the design of how the hook is, if you put a loop through there and just put it over the bait, that loop is going to be sitting against the other line going through the baits. It's not, the loop's not going to be sitting on the shank of the hook. So if you get anything sizable or you get snagged and where you got to put pressure on it, that line will cut through the other lines. It breaks pretty easily. We learned that the hard way. That's how I was rigging people up at the beginning of last year, and we kept breaking off big fish, and it would break like that every time. As soon as I started cutting the loop and just tying it on, that problem went away. We stopped breaking off it. It is much, much stronger with a hookup bait if you cut the loop and tie it on. Okay? I think that's it. It's a pretty simple rig, super effective. Like I said yesterday, all the big fish, we're calling this. Oh, the one difference I wanted to explain. So when you're doing this, you have that weight at the bottom that's just towing the baits down. A lot of the magic with the hookup baits is, as everybody knows, is the fall, that glide, that fall down. Well, you don't get that when you have a weight pulling the baits down. But as soon as you hit the bottom, those baits, glide out and they do their nice, very natural swimming action. And then the profile, the look of the bait, everything looks lifelike. That's why it gets bit. It can just come through the water looking real cool and lifelike, and it's just kind of drifting along doing this. And the baits sit correctly in the water. They don't sit like this, right? Like most lures will sit like this in the water. Hookup baits are balanced to sit in the water just like a fish does. So that's why they get hit on this. But you do miss out on the whole magic of the drop. And so yesterday when we come through areas where that had like olive rockfish or boccaccios that usually suspend off the bottom pretty far, these guys want to get bit, but everybody that was casting these rigs was getting bit. Because the suspended fish, they'd be falling through them, they get bit. Where the double dropper loop rig would shoot right through those fish and only catch the fish at the bottom. So that's really the main difference that I noticed on a lot of fishing trips is if the fish are suspended off the bottom pretty far, the double rig hardly ever makes it to the bottom because it catches those suspended fish. Where the double dropper loop shoots right through those fish and only catches fish that are right at the bottom. So that's mainly the main difference between the two. You're missing out on a little bit of magic by doing the double dropper loop, and you're getting every effect of the bait when you're doing that double rig. But that double rig, you got to cast away from the boat because, like I said, it does a lot of swimming. And if you're dropping it next to somebody that's dropping straight down, it's going to swim around everybody's line. So that's the reason of having to cast it, get it away from the boat, and let it do its magic. And it'll get bit very well. But both styles, you can't go wrong with. Super effective. And like I said, I see it time and time again. The deckhands on the boats, they tell me, they see it time and time again. You learn to fish with hookup baits correctly, it catches you the quality rockfish. There's so many rockfish up there, you catch rockfish, you get a lot of fish. But to catch rockfish, not rockfish, use the hookup baits. And your lingcod count will quadruple. Okay? So that's it. I hope this helps, guys. Go out there and slay.